Hello, this is Alex Orr speaking, and this is the final meeting of the Land Use Committee of the Conservation Commission. And we're going to be meeting for an hour and a half till 1:30. And we have several documents to go through, which are the last set of policy documents, rules for the land use review that we've been conducting for, I'm not quite sure how long, seems like 2 years. Um, and it is our last meeting, as somebody mentioned. So with all fanfare, we have an agenda. And I think we have with us forest management, a thing about beavers, a document on that goes with rules and regulations on hunting. And we have I'm missing one, the appendices, and I think there's three documents, I think. Anyways, so we're gonna take the biggest one first, which is the appendices, and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and if it passes muster, we're gonna send it off to the subcommittee's folder for others to look at.
Well, given the amount of review it's had, I propose we send it on to the commission.
I favor that.
I don't disagree.
So I stuck another document in there last night, which I told you about. It is has to do with maintaining water levels. And it was a PDF file, and I converted it to a Word file in order to put it into the appendix, and it didn't all go correctly. So it needs some tinkering. I'll just put that out there. Okay, good. Got one done quickly. Which one would you like to take next? Forest management's fresh on your mind?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna try out my idea. Michelle has comments, Bruce has comments from today. And what I did was I made a clean copy with all the comments visible, but edits got incorporated. So I wholesale just adopted everybody's edits and sent it out, and that's what Bruce and Michelle looked at. So I'm going to propose that we just simply adopt what they have edited today rather than going through it line by line, and see if people object and want to go through it, fine.
So I read Michelle's comments and also the ones from Rachel, I think had some things in there. They all seem good to me. I think if there were any small additions or questions, then the commissioners can ask them and we can address it then. So,
yep. Perhaps the heaviest of Rachel's comments was whether or not the town had the wherewithal to do a forest management plan, forest plan. And we changed that wording, so it's pretty soft. And that was changed after she made that comment.
well, just as my comment about that is that there's a lot of things in this this big, huge document that we've created that Dave and the staff and other people are going to have to juggle about which needs get priority and how much money to spend. And I think trying to fine tinker it now about that is just, we should leave that to the staff to manage.
Okay.
I agree. I guess my only comment is that I'd like to leave open the possibility, if it's not already, that the town could collaborate with a university or a different organization in developing such a plan. So if that opportunity ever arises and it's appropriate, that it's just an available option.
I don't have the language in front of me, but it says that they have our blessings for contracting with somebody to do that. And your comment today, I thought that had to do with carbon sequestration.
Yeah, the comment I just made is different than what I included. It's just well, yeah, so I know what you're referencing, and I read that, Alex, and it was specific to forest cutting plans. So that's why I'm just bringing it up because I don't know if we've said it more generally.
Well, the forest document says that cutting timber is um, not an objective. It has been for DPW on their land, but they're not cutting now as they have a discussion about whether or not it's appropriate with climate change.
Yeah, I mean, I want to like take the attention off of the forest cutting and just say forest management more holistically, we would be giving our go ahead for any kind of collaboration if that helped with resources and
Yeah,
stuff. That's all.
I think the document heads in that direction.
I agree.
You okay with that, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. So, do we have a move to send the forest management plan to the folder?
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
Aye and aye.
Okay, good, 2 down. I'll take on beavers next, and that's fresh on Erin's mind. Yeah, she fired at me this morning when she read that, and I had a comment back, and I don't really want to get too hung up on that conversation. I'm happy to discuss it a little bit, but that could take 20 minutes, and we don't have that. So, Erin, you saw my comment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the commission has regulatory responsibilities. However, this isn't the document and the charge of the subcommittee isn't to sort of restate state regulations, and particularly all of the regulations on Board of Health procedures. It just doesn't seem appropriate in this document to me. And it borderline feels a little bit like we're not responsible for the Board of Health charge. So for us to have a policy document that outlines the Board of Health charges feels a little strange. And just to me, like if we stated we're managing our conservation lands, and any beaver activity on conservation lands in compliance with state and local laws, that would basically cover it. So just restating the state law in the document, I question its appropriateness in this document. So yeah, and I I thought we had a conversation previously about sort of beaver policy and how the Concom handles beaver policy, and that you had expressed to me that you wanted to have a broader conversation about it. So I'm sorry if I mischaracterized. I wasn't sure how this fell into that conversation. And but yeah, I mean, relative to the land use policy that we're drafting, which is what our policy is going to be relative to these issues on conservation land specifically, I'm not sure this as drafted meets that sort of the charge description that we were authorized to do.
Okay, so Bruce?
Well, on the one hand, I see Aaron's point, and on the other hand, and Alex did say that there were places where it could say conservation land in the draft that would help clarify that. On the other hand, I found it extremely informative and valuable information, which Aaron also said. So a proposal would be to do something like put a reference to it in the basic document and then put it in the appendix. So like there's a number of other things that are in the appendices that are reminding the reader of this whole document that there are relevant state laws and that we have to comply with. So to me, that would be a solution that would be relatively easy and would serve the purpose.
Yeah,
I'm generally in favor of Bruce's recommendation. I do want to heed Aaron's advice about not overstepping our boundaries. So if that's a solution, then I'm for it.
well, um, I actually started writing with the words conservation land. And then all of a sudden I was writing that beavers create and live in protected wetlands. They create them. And they wind up living in a jurisdictional wetland, which may be on our conservation land. But when Aaron said to me today, how are we going to figure out whether or not to trap beavers? There's no escaping. There's given the structure, there's nothing that creates a hole for us to act independently on our conservation land. And the way the law is set up, you guys have a broken system and you make it work. But there's nowhere in the law that mentions the Department of Conservation. It mentions the Concom and it mentions the Board of Health. So if Erin is making decisions on trapping beavers, she shouldn't be.
Aaron is never
No,
making decisions on
the Board
trapping
of
beavers.
the Board of Health or the health directors making those decisions, but it's bizarre to me that it's in this document when that's not even the Conservation Commission's charge to do that.
We're all over the law about beavers. It mentions the Concom all over the place.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I just think the regulatory charge of the Conservation Commission to administer the state wetlands regulations and beaver regulations are different from the Conservation Commission Act, which charges the commission with managing and regulating its conservation lands. So the purpose of our subcommittee is to say on Conservation Commission lands, let's just say, for example, there's a beaver lodge that gets built and it's flooding a farmer downstream. What's the commission's policy going to be relative to trapping that beaver? Because at that point, the Conservation Commission is the landowner, right? It's not, the Conservation Commission isn't making a decision and staff isn't making a decision about trapping the beaver. We're making a decision about how to address a flooded farmer and what the appropriate course of action is, for example. So it's a land management decision. This is all regulatory, which is the entire body of the Conservation Commission and its state law that's already drafted, guidance already drafted. This is essentially reiterating that state law, which I'm not sure it belongs in our conservation land management policy, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not important, and I agree with Bruce that the way that you've synthesized it is very helpful. And I'm not saying that it's not valuable for the commission to have this information and disseminate it and have it as a guidance policy. I'm just saying I don't think it fits in the land management of conservation lands policy.
Okay,
It just
so
seems out of place.
hold on, Michelle. There are, actually, when I wrote that, I didn't spend much time on trapping beavers because the way the duties are divided up, the Conservation Commission wouldn't be making a decision about trapping beavers.
Well,
Could I jump in there? I mean, for instance, using Aaron's example, Alex, if I don't know, hypothetically, the policy of the Conservation Commission was to never trap beavers on conservation land, that would supersede. There would be no need to go to the Board of Health. The Concom has spoken. the department never traps beavers, or they only trap beavers if the following three conditions are met. You know, if, as Aaron said, you know, farmer field upstream, downstream was being flooded. What happens when beavers flood trails? Do we close trails? I don't know. Do we trap beavers because of a closed trail? I think
Okay,
what Aaron is trying to focus in on is conservation land policy. This, I think I agree, is a great document to go in the appendices. Um, but
so,
it doesn't speak to town conservation land
okay,
specifically.
I got you. And it's the first time I've really sort of, it's clicked for me when you said that. So what we could do is put this, I don't know where we are in terms of time frame, but we could fix that document so that it does what you're talking about. And I now understand what you're talking about, and you actually have a live case. Uh, you have a live case.
Well, it was Aaron. Thank you to Aaron to kind of put it all in our heads. Yeah, that way, so clearly.
So I I now get it. And beavers is complicated. It is complicated. And um maybe,
I have a suggestion.
maybe I was wrong-headed in the way I drafted it, because I didn't have that. um there was so much to deal with. It's kind of hard to get a clear vision of what's supposed to be happening, and I think I drafted it wrong.
So my suggestion is that Alex change it with the conservation land in mind. Send it as a separate thing, as a plausible appendix to the full commission, and let them read it and see what they think we should do with it. The commission should do with it, not us, because we won't be there as a group.
Yeah. Okay, Michelle.
I think we got where I was gonna suggest, which is just to try and refocus this on conservation lands, but it was helpful when Dave provided like actual examples. So if you do rewrite it, because it has to be somewhat integrated with the other policies, the other regulatory stuff that we do, having something that kind of brings it home in terms of how to think about it might be useful for commissioners when considering it.
And if I could, I think Aaron started this conversation, and thank you, Aaron, for doing that. But if Alex, you need some real world examples in addition to the ones we've talked about, I think Erin is a great. She's seen so many different examples through the years of working in different towns that manage their conservation land. So
I'll take you up on that, but I'm not going to flip that around to, tonight or tomorrow.
yeah,
It'll take a while.
understood. Understood.
So
So,
just, I guess just generally as we talk about it, because this is the first time I've been present when we talked about beavers, like, are there situations where commissioners would feel comfortable authorizing a trapping or recommending a trapping, like an upstream flooded agricultural field where breaching a dam isn't going to do anything because the beaver dam keeps getting rebuilt, and or if a neighboring property's septic system is being flooded or their well is being flooded, creating a public health situation. If it's flooding a road, if it's threatening a road on conservation land, I mean, like the dam itself, the beaver's activity is on conservation land, but there's a threat to a roadway because of impounded
But-
water.
there's a whole list of examples of where risks and threats exist that help the Board of Health, for example, to decide on that. So let me give it some thought. I am very familiar with that part of it, as you know, but, and let me talk to you, and I'll do what I can to twist it around. And then, and move on, but I got it. And Dave, when we went down, um,
The KC Trail off of Southeast Street.
the KC Trail to the bridge where the Beaver Dam is, and that's a perfect case in point, and I wrote you a couple of page memo on that.
Yeah.
And that hasn't gone away. So
Again, I would just reiterate what others have said, Alex. So there's some really good things. The way you've synthesized it in this document, I don't think any of us are suggesting you throw this out the window. I mean, there's the meat and bones. This is really good stuff. So, and it's pretty clear. So I think there's a place for this. It might be in the appendices, and then the actual managing of beavers on conservation land is a shorter, smaller section with some examples.
Yeah.
That's what I heard from others today.
So what we have right now in the document is that there's no trapping, period. And then it makes an exception for beavers. That's already been approved. And what is not there is under what circumstances would we allow it? So there's in the rules that the commission's already approved, it says that there's no trapping except for beavers. And we'd have to also address whether or not somebody can trap. We have, okay, I'll leave it. And I'll think about it and try and be more constructive when I put it together.
Well, so I have a question on the process. Would the process then be, Alex, you're going to draft it and then bring it to the full commission for review? Or are we going to talk today about what folks might be comfortable with to give you some guidance from?
I feel like we've given him the guidance. I think Alex should redraft it based on this set of comments and send it to the commission as something for the appendix, or maybe the commission will decide it's a freestanding policy document or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on it. We got other things to do, but Michelle?
I guess I'm not clear that we have come up with a policy for beavers, like those examples that Dave mentioned. I don't know that I would have a clear answer based on what we have right now. So if the purpose, like our other documents, is to come forward with suggestions, or it's like a construct, or just any single proposal, I'm not sure we have that to give the commissioners right now. What is the policy?
Yeah.
Well, for example, if you look at the first page of what I wrote, it lists the whereases that would be considered a health threat or risk. And it is like, flooding a septic field, a well. There's I think 9 of them. And we could write a policy that says that if those things are met, we would approve removal of beavers. Just like.
Go ahead. Right.
Well, I guess my concern is I don't want the commission or the subcommittee drafting this offline outside of a meeting somehow. If one member is going to put together a proposal and the whole commission's going to talk about it when we're talking about the policy at large, I think that's fine. But I do agree with Michelle. We haven't really talked at all in open session about under what circumstances committee members would be comfortable with trapping. And this example with like the A through H, I don't know that a farming well, I guess reduction in the production. Okay, so there's one under I where there might be a
In my
potential
mind,
option.
it's that list either on conservation land or because of something happening on conservation land, which fits it into our charge. And then if there's one little finer grain thing that it needs to get worked on, it can in open discussion of all the commissioners. But to me, it's that list as the issues, but as related to conservation land, either because the conservation land is causing it, or it's actually happening on the conservation land, which it could if, for example, conservation land is farmed.
So it would be something like if A through I are occurring on conservation land, the Conservation Commission may consider trapping as a potential solution to address the public health issue, something like that.
That's what I just threw out. However, if I was, really thinking about this, you have to ask yourself whether removing the beavers, say, you can have 12 beavers in a colony of different, and it's all written up in that document, what the usual family looks like.
Right.
And to trap all those beavers out is not that easy.
That's why the word may is valuable, because it gives us a chance sometime in the future to discuss what to do, whatever the circumstance is.
Well, and
Somebody thinks he can go down there and whistle at them and they all come running. That doesn't happen. And Dave knows that, and so does Aaron probably.
Well,
But
I like Aaron's.
okay,
well, I guess the other suggestion I would offer is that we have some sort of a policy that, for example, prior to taking that step of trapping, that we investigate with professional consultation whether there's an alternative that may result in sort of coexistence of the beavers on the conservation land with like a man-made solution. So a flow control structure,
I would never put trapping beavers first.
right. But I do think we should spell it out to some degree of the steps and what we would want the steps we'd want to go through before
Michelle?
considering it.
Yeah, what
Michelle?
Aaron just said, we've talked about before, and for some reason I thought that was written down somewhere, but we had discussed at some point making it a policy to consult with Beaver, I don't know who it is, the Beaver.
Beaver Solutions.
Yes, as a precursor to making any kind of like lethal trapping decisions. And I think it would be helpful, Alex, if you're going to take this to be clear that trapping is not the first method of intervention, and that we explore alternative solutions first.
Yeah. So that list that I pointed out, that's just a starting place. And the case in point down there on Hop Brook, we've got a dam which somebody else thinks is threatening his bridge, because the dam backs up water to his bridge, and he's been all over the map trying to get the town to take out that dam. Anyways, so those things do happen, and it is on conservation land. That's Atkins Flats, so right around in there. So it's real life, and I'll give it some thought, and and I'll talk to Aaron.
Can we just revisit process a little bit? I think that's good, but am I understanding this that Alex is going to talk to Aaron, really going to work something up, and this document may end up in some form in the appendices, and then because we're not meeting again as a committee, is this committee charging Alex to put together a draft that we would not review again, because that is a violation of open meeting law? That draft would be clearly marked draft, not whatever, not completed by the subcommittee, whatever nicety we put on it. And then that would go as part of the whole package to the commission, and say the commission never, we didn't get to the point where we could recommend this to you. Here's a draft. You can work on it as a full body, as part of your process moving forward.
Yes, and I can imagine Michelle managing a 15, 20-minute discussion just about beavers during one of the meetings going forward.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds great.
We have slapped the tail on the water enough on that one. Okay. See, we have forest management, beavers, the hunting document, and I get a little lost here. Is there a fourth one?
Appendices,
What is it?
which we already did.
The appendices, right? Okay, so the last one we have to do then is the forest, is the hunting document. And I don't have, I, yeah, I have it right here. You folks have been through it, Bruce has been through it. I made changes over, yeah, I think late yesterday, a few just polishing type things. Does anybody have any comments at this point on it?
Sorry, when was that final draft sent out? Maybe
There's
I have
about
not.
three versions. The one there is a version that went out early this morning, maybe before 8 o'clock.
Okay, I have not seen that one.
So all the comments that I have received were incorporated.
From today.
Yeah, I went in and changed what you wrote, Michelle, and like for example, the poetic use of margins for what Mass Wildlife was saying about uh, Blaze Orange. I stuck that back in regular column, for example. Remember that?
No, that's relates to something I commented on.
Yeah, you said you had a couple of comments about where we're talking about what's in the conveyances for Atkin Flats and Eastman, and you said use quotes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that meant,
And I did that.
okay, great. So then there's just less discussion about what it says is all I want
Yeah, I thought the indentation means that it's being quoted, but
Okay.
actually putting the quotes there
Okay, perfect.
works for me. I don't have any problem with that. And I got a little pushback on, but I'm not gonna follow my sword over it, about the way we say that the process of looking at all of the parcels hasn't been completed. It sounded like you were asking for every single conservation parcel to go through and see if somebody mandated that hunting occur on it, and that wasn't what we were doing.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting, I wasn't asking for that. I just want to be clear that we didn't do that because just, to be,
It was already stated in the document.
well,
But
in
but where
that
you
moment,
put,
yeah, I think it just needs to be
where
clear.
you put it is fine,
Okay.
but Erin actually did go through all of the traditional hunting areas, and she ran out of time with Lawrence Swamp because there was 21 things to look at.
Aaron, do you feel like you look through the majority of deeds that are open to hunting right now? Like what proportion do you think we covered? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
I'm confused about what you're saying open to hunting, so I'm gonna just say my understanding of it. The ones that were previously listed on the town website,
Yeah, the eight.
I have gone through most of those with the exception of Lawrence Swamp. I've started to go through Lawrence Swamp, but it's extensive. And it's not as easy as you might think to read through them all. So Lawrence Swamp has not been verified. However, there are numerous other parcels which, if you look at the state designated buffers, so the 500-foot setback from the road and the 150, or excuse me, 500-foot setback from structures and the 150-foot setback from the road, there are other properties in town that would qualify as being huntable under state law, which I have not checked, like Patterson Conservation Area and Wildwood Conservation Area and Cushman Brook Conservation Area, of which there's a similar corridor, I'll say, of like multiple parcels for Cushman Brook, for example, where there's probably like 10 parcels clustered together, which I haven't checked. So I think when we're saying, have I checked the parcels where we allow it, it really depends what you mean by that. Our
Yeah.
previous policy, or if we're just saying on following state law.
Right.
Because
That,
following
that's an
state law, I had
important
not checked.
distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I just want to be, Aaron made an important distinction about, what our criteria are and what we're, what could be open, and just to be clear about what research has been done and what we found and what we didn't look at. Just,
So your comment is there. So,
okay, but Aaron brought, yeah. Okay, as long as it covers the fact that a full D search wasn't conducted, so that we know where we left off here, because otherwise this is a very, very thorough piece of writing, and I just want to be clear what it's based on.
so Aaron hold on, Bruce, please. Has somebody asked you to go looking for parcels that could be hunted, or has somebody asked you to go looking for parcels where somebody in the conveyance process said this must be open to hunting?
Has
No,
anybody asked me other than this
no, it's all
board?
part of this conversation, Alex. Yeah, nobody outside this group is,
Well,
No, there was
there
a public comment
the,
about this.
yeah, the
or is
public
there?
comment was the one that came up, which was saying that there was a piece of land on Lawrence
Oh,
Swamp that said
okay.
it was conveyed to the town under the condition that it be hunted.
Yeah,
But I've seen previously, for example, on certain parcels where there was conditions where landowners conveyed it to the town and didn't want to allow hunting. So just for the sake of a scenario, let's say the commission as a whole reviewed this and decided we're going to allow hunting anywhere that the state allows hunting. Just looking at this generally. But then just a hypothetical, let's say on Wildwood Conservation Area, it was conveyed to the town with a requirement that there's no hunting on it, then we would have missed that one. And or Patterson, we would have missed that one. Or if we develop a policy that says we're only going to allow hunting on these specific ones, but then there's another one where it said hunting was supposed to be allowed as part of the deed acquisition, we would have missed that one. So I just being clear about what's the ramifications are on either side of the scenario.
yeah. So when you say, yes, Bruce, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask for a specific double check on one thing that I asked to be removed. But let's finish this first.
You asked for something to be removed from the hunting document?
Yeah, and I just want to double check that it is changed in the document that's going to be sent to the full commission as a memo.
I
So
went,
either,
I went through,
okay, I'm just
you
asking
had a
for
line, you had a strikeout through something, and I took it out.
correct. It's on page 3 at the top. And it says the sentence is the last one in that paragraph. Due to a lack of information, this matter was not a factor considered as the subcommittee developed its, and it now should say alternatives regarding hunting, see below.
It does. It does.
Okay, thank you.
I think I've said several times, all comments were incorporated.
Okay, that one just seemed important to double check. Thank you.
So I'm a little confused when Aaron says allow hunting according to state, whatever she said, state laws, or I don't know of any state laws that qualify land for hunting or not. They regulate seasons.
The buffers. So there's state law. My understanding is state law for a hunter, if they're looking for a place to hunt, if land is not posted as no hunting, and it's outside of 150 feet from a paved road, and it's not within 500 feet of a occupied structure, then they can hunt there.
Right.
Right. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So one issue I saw was at Atkins Flats on here, it says no hunting. I just want to make sure that it's a portion of the property is open to hunting.
Yeah, I added those comments, so
Well, yeah, and in the document, it says from Baby Carriage Brook to Southeast Street.
I just think it should say like in parentheses portion whenever you mention the prohibition, because just to be clear, it's like if one
I,
mentions it somewhere,
yeah, I push back on that because I don't care if it's 1 square foot that says no hunting. The fact that we posted it as hunting, meaning all of it, is not true. And so I don't feel the need to bend over backwards because the language in the conveyance document is there, and there's no tilt of the facts.
but it's
Uh,
also not true that it's not open to hunting. It's literally a portion, which is very much detailed and spelled out in that deed. I just, clarity I think is important throughout.
Yeah, so on the town's website where it lists Atkins Flats, for example, where it lists Atkins Flats as being open to hunting, it says in parentheses, west of Baby Carriage Brook, or excuse me, east of Baby Carriage Brook. So it's clear hunting is allowed on this property east of Baby Carriage Brook only.
I've never seen that, Aaron.
Never seen,
I've never seen the Baby Carriage Brook clarification on the town website.
I think it's there.
yeah, it's there.
Okay, I don't need to go any further, but anyways,
Just
yeah,
east of Brook only.
So that speaks to your point, Michelle, is clarity is important, and it's not that it isn't, hunting isn't allowed, nor is it completely allowed. It's part of the parcel is allowed to be hunted and the other isn't.
yeah.
And that
It's
had to do
interesting
with
that
the conveyance.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that the part that isn't hunting it goes to Southeast Street, so then you get into the 150-foot buffer. And you've got a 500-foot buffer around that house. And that's a little messy.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the conveyance coming from I think from the gentleman who lives in that house and I think conveyed the land before my time.
I think it was 1981.
Yep, long before my time. So
So all those comments were put in, and right from the get-go, when I emailed you, I said I just as soon incorporate all the comments, not go through them one by one. And they're there.
Okay, but you just said that you're not adding my additions about portion of Atkins Flat and
I did not say that. I've
okay,
said repeatedly that all comments were incorporated.
okay. I was confused. That's great.
That's different than what never mind.
All right.
I honored everybody's comments.
Thank you. I'm good with this document to move forward with it.
I agree with Michelle.
So before this goes to the commission, should staff make some effort to go through the list of deeds and get some clarity on which properties, just to verify, so that we're not going to a hearing potentially choosing.
So isn't the analysis of the different parcels an ongoing time available problem? So I would say this is a memo for their consideration, and down the road, there's going to be more of a discussion about it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you and Dave saw it, but I emailed to all of you the language which is now of record in the rules and regulations for fishing and hunting. So when we rewrote that, rules and regulations. We separated fishing from hunting. But what's standing now is a statement that says fishing and hunting are open unless land is posted. And, it's a pretty simple sentence. And that's in your email. I just wanted to remind people what it is we have, and that language probably should not stand because there's lots of room for improvement, which is written into this document. And when I wrote this document, I began to think a lot about managing for recreational satisfaction, which I think is important, and it's been a big research topic for the Forest Service and others. And we don't go out and survey people about how they feel about certain things. We usually hear about it because it's a hot topic, dogs, for example. But there's a lot in here, and frankly, if the commission's going to handle this whole subject in a 20-minute meeting, which is what we do, they will not be able to get their head around it. And also, if they allow themselves to be silented, they won't be able to get their head around it. It's a complex issue, and managing multiple uses is actually one of the things that I really get a kick out of. So the town is moving into a period of time in the future where there could be an issue, and I hope, frankly, we can avoid that. As trail use increases, population increases, and you have 32 species open for hunting on the same property, or whatever that number is, and some species, available for hunting all year long, every month, with handguns and other things. It's as a guy who has taught hunter ed for a long time, it's an issue that really pops out at me.
Well, I think we've done, and especially you have done significant justice to the topic. I think we're at a point where we should send our things to the full commission and have discussion as it gets worked out over the next number of meetings, which was the process intent from the beginning. And it's just taken a very long time to get here. I just want to applaud our chair's work and all the three of us and the five of us in our work to get to this point, and just let the commission do what it's going to do with it now, because that's what they asked us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have several documents, 4 documents, and normally they would have 10 days or so to look them over before they came up for discussion or a vote. And I'm assuming that when we put them out there, maybe we should actually talk about this. What do we do with them? And how does the commission become notified that they're available? It could be, for example, at the next commission meeting. It could be that we put them in the folder and Aaron sends out an email to everybody saying that they're there for their consumption and consideration. How would you like to proceed? And
Second one.
Michelle, I would expect you to have some thoughts on this, because you're going to be chair of the commission when they come up for discussion. So
Yeah, Bruce, what did you just?
But I think the second one, getting it out and notifying people that they're there so they can start looking. They won't feel like they haven't been notified. And then I assume that Aaron and Michelle would have a discussion about how does this fit in each of the next few meetings, not try to do them all in one meeting. That would never work. So just how to line them up and get the commission to work with them.
Yeah, and I'd even pick an easy one to start with.
That
And with
sounds-
at what is there a place out there somewhere I'm looking at my calendar up here that you want to have the public hearing? Because that is the next, I assume that's the next big iterative step.
My recommendation would be that as we put them on the agenda for discussion, we put them in the commission packets, and then once everything's been approved to move to hearing discussions, then I would create basically a page on the Conservation Commission website that would list all of the draft policies for anybody to view before it goes to a public hearing for a period of time.
Well, as soon as they go into this subcommittee's folder, they're available to the public. And I ran into that when I searched the town website for something, and all of a sudden I was looking at my own document.
Yeah,
And
but they're just like a subfolder of the packet versus an actual page where we tell
I
people,
got it.
what they
Yeah.
are. And
So I favor Aaron putting them someplace where everybody can get to them. I don't favor personally mailing them out to people. What I do favor is Aaron sending something out to the entire commission. So those people that don't normally show up know that they're there. Everybody gets told.
Right.
And that they have plenty of time to look at them. And that before we leave today, we have some idea of what the schedule is going to look like. For example, you want legal review. I don't know when you send the thing off to for legal review. Does that happen before the commission votes on them? Afterwards? Certainly before the public hearing. What do you and Dave envisioned?
Yeah, normally I think we would have the commission vote on them, vote to hold a public hearing. I think we need to allow time and space for a legal review. So I think I don't know as we can set that today. We can work with Michelle on that. That's just scheduling with Michelle based on meeting schedule and kind of what's coming down the pike. Aaron will know how many hearings there are, and so how we space those out, I think, needs to be strategic, as you indicated earlier, Alex.
Yeah, I
But,
imagine legal review is going to be 30 days.
yeah, it's going to take a little while to get that.
I would recommend that we have the legal review done before we open the public hearings.
Yes, yes,
Because we wouldn't
absolutely.
want, put it to a hearing if there's legal issues with anything in there.
Yeah, but I
Right.
meant the vote. We've been voting on these sections. The commission has been voting on these sections as we go, correct?
Yeah, since September.
So essentially they're voting on drafts to forward on and then hold a public hearing. So once they have all the drafts or decide how many drafts they want to go to public hearing, then we get the legal review. I will say that in my mind, the wild card is hunting. Whether the full commission needs more time on that, wants to, we've had a lot of intense conversations about it. I'm not hoping for that, but who knows where hunting is going to go. I think some of the other sections may go rather quickly. Hunting may be a little more challenging. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody wants to break it out.
It's only a memo. It's not a proposal.
I don't understand that, Bruce. And Michelle,
Uh,
I see you got your hand up.
Well,
I don't-
I can let Bruce, I wanted to bring something else up, so let's
Well,
finish
thanks.
it.
There is not, this document's not a memo.
about hunting?
Yeah, I can turn it into a memo, but it's not a memo.
To be a memo from that it's about the alternatives that are possible. It's not making a recommendation.
Right. But structurally, it's not a memo.
Okay, well,
So
it's going to require discussion about which alternative to accept then.
Right. And you have your hand up, Bruce?
Now I'm done.
Michelle?
I mean, per this discussion, I think that we might end up having more than one session for probably hunting, which just we can expect that. But I'd like to keep it to a certain time frame, so just to prepare for that.
My guess is you'll wind up having 3.
3 just for hunting.
Yeah.
That's not ideal from my perspective, but we'll see what happens. Yes, once I just want to reserve a couple minutes to talk once we figured out what the next step is.
Okay, and I'll get back to Bruce, and then I have something here which is back on packaging. And I want to keep an eye on the time. It's now a couple of minutes past 1. Bruce?
Go ahead, Dave, you probably are ahead of me.
I guess what I'm asking the group, the commission members, is does it make sense to group all, call them the easier policy documents together and say, these are moving forward like this? Because I worry that if you group hunting with all the rest of them, you're slowing down that whole, all the sections we've agonized over.
That makes sense to me. I like
Yeah.
it.
If I had my way, I'd put forest management out there first or something easy.
Mm,
And to get the group working together
mm,
and get the juices flowing and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard and that the discussion's not dominated. So start with something easy and
mm,
don't throw everything out there at once.
mm.
Can I, Bruce, can I just mention something before you talk? I said I would put all the documents together back into the big policy document. And I kind of wanted to get that done for this meeting. And I didn't, but I started looking at them while I was waiting for 12 o'clock. And so my plan is to take the documents that have been approved and put them back into the overall document and on its way to Erin. And I may take the documents that we've approved and put them in there too, with the idea that if they get changed, Erin can make the changes. So I've been saving every document that the commission approves is in a special folder in my computer so that I don't get mixed up with other drafts. Bruce?
Well, my question is, I'm a commissioner who hasn't been a part of this. I'm seeing this coming to me. My guess is they should see the 3 leaf hunting over here, the 3 documents we're sending them now separately, and that packaging them into one big policy document is a staff function. But my question is, and I'm going to need Dave for the answer, so we'll just wait until he's back. But my question is there a mechanism, a legal procedural mechanism by which the hunting could be done separately so that we can have legal review of everything else, have a hearing about everything else, and get the everything else document done, and then the hunting thing can go on its own and be added to the bigger document at some time down the road? That's my question. So, Dave, do I need to restate the question? I can't hear you.
Sorry, somebody walked in with a question right then. I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't hear that.
Is there a legal procedural mechanism by which we could package everything except hunting, send it for legal review, send it off to a public hearing, have it, all those steps done, and that the hunting could go along on its own separately and then get added in at some point a year from now, say, if it took that long. Is there a path for doing
Yes, you can do that.
my recommendation then?
Sure.
So
Can
if
have,
we do that, just look at
Yeah.
the language I sent you today, which is, that's what stands now for fishing and hunting. It's like 3 lines.
Okay. It is what it is, but I could imagine this big document taking another year before it actually gets totally done if you leave hunting in it.
Well, there's nothing really to put in because this is a discussion document.
Well, that's what I said. It was a memo.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I would propose that we, and I guess my other question, Dave, is at some point in the past, you said we want to wait until you have the whole thing before we do legal review. We don't want to do legal review of each individual thing. So we're this close to having something that the lawyers could look at.
that was what I said earlier, but again, if we have, I don't know how many sections, is there 6 sections? I can't remember, 5 sections, 6 sections. If we have those 6 and hunting is over here, it's fine. We could, you know, every moment you spend with attorneys is, you know, whatever, it costs the town. So if we have 4, 5, 6 sections, whatever, get them reviewed, get them to hearing, and then we move hunting along at whatever pace we need to. I hope it is not a year, but
I'm being hyperbolic, but
yeah.
it's my proposal.
I think it can work. Aaron, do you see any problem with that from a public hearing standpoint?
I mean, it just means we're gonna have to have a separate hearing for the hunting rules once we get to that point. I mean, I think we could do it that way. Another suggestion that I would have is maybe we do just a special meeting to talk about hunting and set aside a couple hours for a special meeting, for a special discussion, and talk through the various alternatives that have been discussed and get a read from the commission of what direction they want to go in so that we can, you know, direct staff to do what needs to be done to finalize the policy, in the sense of like making sure the list of huntable lands is up to date, and all that. But I do think that there's a benefit in waiting to the overall land use policy because there are things in, for example, the rules and regulations that point back to hunting. There's things in the appendix that point back to hunting and so on. So to me, having a cohesive document would be would be wonderful. But
I like that idea for 2 reasons. One is it doesn't put hunting out there on its own to be a lightning rod. But 2, I think the work, you know, Alex did some great work on that. You know, we all did, but Alex really gave all that great detail and thinking, deep thinking to all the species that can be hunted, the core, call it the core species that are hunted, the, you know, deer, pheasant, turkey, etc. And we may, you know, I don't know, I'm an optimist. The commission may really like what we've put together. I think it's really good work. I think it's really thoughtful work. So focusing on, I don't know, call it these 7 conservation areas, we would allow hunting in the following 4 or 5 categories. And, you know, that's one of the options in the quote memo or the document. I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, I think the commission really might like that. So let's test the waters with that and see what comes back.
Withdraw my suggestion.
Michelle?
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to have a fully integrated single document, and I'd like to try to get hunting done in the same process that we do with everything else and not put it on a pedestal or have a special meeting. So if we have to do it in 3 sessions, then let's do it in 3 sessions. I don't think it deserves that attention to have a separate meeting. So I like everything said so far about the process going forward.
I would ask that if, when however the hunting document goes out, that commissioners have ample time to sit quietly with the document and let it sink in and not spring it on them. Then we'll just get Mexican jumping beans.
Yeah, I think some reminders to please, here now it's available announcement, please review ahead of the meeting, things like that, would be useful.
Yeah, I'd give them a week, 10 days. Anyways, I feel like we all should go out for dinner, pat each other on the back. I would be willing to take everybody to dinner, but that would be, that might violate some
And the
rules
public meeting
somewhere.
law, the open meeting law.
We could talk about the menu. Anyways, I really appreciate spending time. Michelle, you got your hand up.
Yeah, before you thank me, I'm just, just gonna be a stick in the mud here. I just want to bring up and air it in this meeting that we've talked about recreational satisfaction. We've spent an inordinate amount of time on hunting, but there is something we have known incidents for with injuries. There is a constant problem, and we have survey data from our residents saying that it is a problem, and that is off-leash dogs. And I feel like we did not do that subject the same justice that we've done for other topics on this. And I'm not sure that I'm personally satisfied with the discussion that we've given it. I mean, this was the #1 concern about recreation areas in Amherst, and it kind of got ushered under the rug a little bit. And I continue to be concerned because this is the time when I'd like to go out to my family to Wentworth, which we were doing since they were kids. And now every time we go there, my kids get jumped on by big dogs, and people say things like, actually, it is an off-leash area. And I mean, it's a problem. It's a big problem, and it's a public safety problem. And, Andre made a point that there hasn't really been any hunting accidents, incidents, or injuries, but there have been incidents with dogs. And I just want to plainly state that this is a known public safety issue for residents of the town. And I feel like hunting just stole the show here, where this is a problem that maybe didn't get the airtime that it deserves. And that's my little diatribe. Thanks.
I hear you and I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. I don't think, you're not right that we shoveled it under the rug. We didn't consciously do that.
I know we didn't consciously do it, and I know there was a reason why we spent so much time on hunting, but it feels a bit imbalanced, I guess, in the end.
Well, you're more than welcome to dig into it and keep going on it. I will certainly support you. But I don't think I'm going to spend, I'm kind of spent right now.
Understandably.
So, just if I could,
Bruce, then Dave.
nothing precludes us now that we're off this subcommittee and we're individual commissioners. Oh, I read this whole thing and it's like, where are the dogs? It's the off-leash dogs. We can speak as individual commissioners in just the way that Michelle just did now on any of the topics that are in this massive thing that we've created.
So it's coming back to accidents. I wrote in the hunting document that there have been no reported incidences. So that's in that document. And but I don't think that accidents or incidences is a key decision-making factor. There are lots and lots of people who are unhappy about dogs, and they don't go someplace like Michelle because they had a bad dog experience, and their happiness on conservation land is being injured, and they're having less satisfaction using town land, which should be open to everybody. And those dogs keep people from using perhaps their favorite place. And I'm not saying this just because of what Michelle said, but there are people also who don't like hunting. And I, I, I'm not advocating that. I don't particularly feel that way, but there are people who like who found those shotgun shells, and that was noteworthy. And there are people who I was with somebody the other day, and they said I won't go on the conservation land because they're hunting. And she was, you know,
Sorry, we've got 10 minutes and I see 3 hands.
so
I
we,
just want to jump in, Alex, and because you're saying satisfaction, well, it's not annoying. I mean, it's annoying, but I'm literally worried that my small child will be permanently disfigured by a dog on conservation land that's running ahead of their owner. My kid's a kid, he loves petting dogs. Like, this isn't just it's annoying to be jumped on by a wet dog. This is like
you know,
I don't want an emergency room. Okay, I don't want to diminish like what's annoying and what is a literal public health and safety issue.
well, I, I, I haven't seen the town rally to that, frankly.
I apologize.
Eric?
I've got to run to another meeting. Can I just say one thing about Michelle's comment, which is I think our process allows Michelle, so the commission is just voting on the draft regulations. So this is leading up to a public hearing. Any time during that process leading up to the public hearing and during the public hearing, commission members, individuals like you, can make cases and say, you know what, section 4, I think should be beefed up. And if 50 people come to the meeting and say, wow, dogs are a major problem, that's an opportunity for the commission to hear that and say, you know what, we need to relook at section 4. So I think this is the process allows for
Yeah.
exactly what you're
I,
talking
I
about.
agree, Dave. And it's just that we have like 18 pages on hunting and a line about dogs, and that's where it feels odd. So I want to
I
be clear when you
totally
present the
understand.
data that it's an odd presentation of the issue that feels imbalanced. Anyway, thank you. And I understand that going forward.
15 pages,
Sorry.
and most of them are pretty pictures
So I have to leave very soon. Nope. Also,
and no dead animals. Aaron?
I was just going to reiterate what Dave said, but also just say this is just our draft. And I have heard directly from Brad, for example, who's been out doing more enforcement, specifically at Wentworth. They've done like 20 enforcement walks out there. Not enforcement, but more like public outreach, like walking the land and seeing if dogs are off. And the messaging has been, well, the town allows off-leash dogs between the hours of, X time and X time. And it seems like there's some confusion around that. For example, like people think it's a cross the board policy, or people think that it's every day of the week on any conservation land. So I do agree, like there's some confusion among the public apparently about this. And the other thing I'll say is the town, is working on signage right now for kiosks. And I have mentioned in association with that process that we had talked about incorporating more educational information about dogs and cleaning up dog poop and that sort of thing. So yeah, I just wanted to mention those a couple things.
Michelle, did you ever think about bringing a heavy duty squirt gun?
I haven't. I mean,
You can put, you can get a heavy duty squirt gun and put a solution in there that stings a dog's eyes, will not injure them, but it will
just
cause.
like all the more unpleasant with my children. I don't want to teach them that. Anyway, I've said what I want to say, and I appreciate people responding to that. And I know Bruce has to go, and I do want to just say thank you for all the work that you guys have done, and Aaron for supporting us through this, and don't want to leave without that. So Excellent work, everybody.
No, we're done.
I'll still sing your praises and saying goodbye. So thank you so much for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a small group. We got an awful lot done. It did take us a while, but it was worth it, and we talked it all through, and we got it won't happen again for a long time.
Yeah,
I would like to do something in the future to change the 20% in our 100-foot buffer down to 10. And maybe even change the 50-foot to something bigger.
that's a bylaw regulation.
Yeah, as we have a lot of houses coming at us in the future.
A different subcommittee of which I am not going to join.
All
I'll
right.
gladly assign somebody else to it.
All right, I have to go. I'm sorry.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, and thank you, Aaron, for setting it all up and being here. And I really appreciate it. It's been fun to get to know all of you. So, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.